Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's lesson. I've asked a few of my friends to help us review Psalms 23.
The Lord is my shepherd.
All that I need.
He lets me rest in green meadows.
He leads me beside peaceful streams.
He renews my strength.
Me along the right path, springing honor to his name.
This week we are continuing to learn Psalms 23. We're going to focus on verse 4a. Remember, A means the beginning of the verse. The verse goes like this. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me.
This week, I want you to think about a time when you've been scared or you've been lonely. Maybe it was in a dark room, or maybe it was when you have felt alone in a store by yourself, or maybe it was just something that was really scary that happened to you or your family. And today we're going to talk about this verse that talks about even when we're in the darkest valley, that God does not leave us. We don't have to be afraid when we're feeling scared and lonely. So that's what we're going to focus on today, learning more about how God is with us even during the dark times.
God watches over us and cares for us. He gives us peace, renews our strength, and guides us along right paths. God also helps us when we're scared. God helps us overcome our fear. The 23rd Psalm says, even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid. You are close beside me. What do you picture when you hear the words dark valley? When have you felt very alone and very scared? What helped you feel better? Sometimes we imagine monsters under our beds or in our closet. Of course, there aren't really monsters in the closet, but monsters often represent a lot of other fears that we have. Fears of the dark, fears of being left alone, or fears of getting hurt. I've had Andrea, Adeline, and McKenna draw a monster and then write the thing that scares them the most. Think of the scariest thing you can imagine. Maybe it's being lost in the middle of a big store or a big city. Or maybe it's being out in the woods at night. Or maybe it's being in a fierce storm. Whatever it is, maybe you should draw a monster and write that thing on your page. Even though our monsters aren't real, they do look scary, and they represent these very real fears we've written down. Why are these fears we've written down so scary? Why do you think God can help us with our fears? Scary things are probably going to happen to every one of us in our lives. We can avoid getting scared. We can't avoid getting scared, but we can turn to God when we're scared. God can help us do the right thing in that scary situation. And God can help us feel less scared and more at peace. God helps us overcome fears. Right now, let's listen to a story about a woman who really did have to face the scariest thing she could ever imagine happening to her. But God helped her overcome her fears.
In our lesson today, we are going to learn about a woman named Naomi. Now, Naomi is found in the book of Ruth. And this particular story, we find a woman who has lost everything. She's lost her husband, she's lost her sons, she's lost everything that she owned, and she's having to go back to her hometown. And it was a really dark, sad time in her life. And we will watch how God uses Ruth in her life to bring joy and gladness and walks through this dark time with her. God sends Ruth to her. So let's watch this video.
This is a true thing that happened in the Bible to a woman named Naomi. Naomi had lived in Moab for 10 years with her family, but now she was a widow with no husband and no son. She had no house, no money, no animals, no anything. She was very sad. So she decided to move back to Bethlehem, where she had been born. But she didn't know if anyone would remember her or help her when she got back. Naomi, quite possibly, was very scared. Naomi walked back to Bethlehem. Ruth and Orpah, who had married Naomi's sons, were following Naomi, but she urged them to return to their own homes. Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all wept because they were so sad. Orpah did go back, but Ruth chose to stay with Naomi. Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I'll die, and there I'll be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us. It made Naomi happy that Ruth had chose to stay with her. Naomi was still very sad, though, because she had lost everything. Ruth was also feeling a lot of emotion. She was leaving her home and going to live in a land where she wouldn't know anyone. She wouldn't know the language either, and she wouldn't know what to do. She also could have been very scared. When Ruth and Naomi came to Bethlehem, the whole town was happy to see them. The women of Bethlehem said, "Can this be Naomi?" Naomi said, "Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for it is a bitter lot that the Almighty has sent me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty." Naomi was still very sad. Now they were back in Bethlehem, but Ruth and Naomi still didn't have any food. They were very scared because they didn't know when they would ever have anything to eat. So Ruth decided to go out into the fields and glean barley. This meant that she was allowed to pick up whatever was left on the ground after the owner picked the barley. It wasn't much, but it would keep them from starving. It made Naomi happy that Ruth helped her by gathering the barley. Now Boaz was the owner of the field and saw Ruth gleaning barley from his field. Boaz was very kind and told his workers to leave even more barley on the ground for Ruth. This made Naomi and Ruth very happy. After some time, Boaz made a decision to marry Ruth. He wanted to take care of her and for Naomi. A wedding. This was very exciting. It meant that Ruth and Naomi would be cared for, and they wouldn't have to worry about being hungry or alone. Everyone was so happy. The next year, Ruth and Boaz, they had their first baby, a son. They named him Obed. Now Naomi was a grandmother, and they were all very happy. Later, when Obed grew up, he became the father of Jesse. And when Jesse grew up, he became the father of David, the shepherd boy who killed Goliath and became king of Israel, and who was the ancestor of Jesus, for which we are all very happy.
You know, the things in this life are not always good. Bad things happen even to good people. But we as Christians, people that have put our trust in God, we have to know that God will walk through the hard times, the dark times, the lonely times with us. We do not have to be afraid. When we look at this story of Naomi, God took care of her. He provided for her. He sent her a companion or a friend in Ruth, and Ruth walked this dark road with her. And if you look at the end of the story, God made her a grandmother, and he brought happiness back into her life. And we can trust that God is there for us no matter what we face. God is going to walk through the dark and hard situations of life with us. God will help us overcome our fears. Even in the darkest valley, we do not have to be afraid because God is always with us.